Hello everybody, so I'm now fully vaccinated in Kigali, and it's been exactly 3 weeks to the day that I went and got my first vaccine, which you can watch up there. And the first vaccine was so simple. I just hopped down to my local clinic, got the jab, in and out in 20 minutes and done. Very easy. So I assumed that's what I would do this time. So yesterday I got a message from Minisante, which is the Ministry of Health, and it just said, come on down, get your second jab. Which I was really pleased about, because I have to say, you're never too sure. The first time I went, I wrote down my number on a piece of paper. It went into a pile of papers, and I have to say I wasn't too sure whether or not I would actually get that text message, but I did. So I was actually very pleased with that. So got that message last night saying, come and get your second vaccine dose. So this morning, I got up, got dressed, hopped on a motor, went back to my clinic, and when I arrived, I was told that there was no more vaccine left. Now I did talk, I think I've talked briefly in the last video about the fact that, there is a real disparity globally in the distribution of vaccine, and there is a huge shortage of it in Africa. So the fact that I got my first vaccine was great. But I really wanted to be fully vaccinated. So I was told to head on down to Kigali camp, which is like this big cultural village area. It's like a convention centre. And I got down there, walked in, there were a lot of people. A lot of people and not very many signposts. I think that was a slight issue in Kigali sometimes, is you can turn up somewhere and you'd like to see a signpost saying testing. There was one saying testing, but the ones like saying first vaccination, second vaccination, they're not so much. So it was a bit of a moment where I had to kind of wander around and ask people which line I was supposed to be in, where I was supposed to sit. But eventually I found the right tent and I went in, and I have to admit, my first impression was a little bit of a heart sinker. I sort of saw the queue, and there were so many people. I mean, we're talking like hundreds of people in this tent. And I kind of looked at it and I thought, oh, is that the queue? Because, like the first time I went to get the vaccine, it was my local clinic, and there was just about 20-30 people sitting in the tent filling out forms, all very orderly, and then you went through and you got jabbed and you went home. And I sort of looked at this and I thought, oh yeah, that's gonna take a while. So I started to think, oh gosh, I wish I brought a book with me. But I sat down and I was approached by a steward, and here's where it got a little bit strange, I have to admit. There is sometimes a sort of a customer service thing here, where customers are sometimes treated with a little bit of suspicion. Other YouTubers have talked about customer service before. There's a good link up here. Just from my own perspective, there are times when you're treated with a little bit of suspicion, when really you should be sort of greeted with a smile and, hello, this is what you need to do. I think an example of that was during the full lockdown that we recently had. I had a friend who needed to get to the airport, and it was quite straightforward. You go online and you fill out an application for movement in the middle of lockdown. So you say, where you're going, so the airport, why you're going to catch your flight, your name and the registration of the car that you're taking. And he applied for that and he got turned down. And then sort of on the local community forum, everybody was saying, yeah, we're trying to get to the airport and we've been turned down. And sort of when we contacted the movement department who coordinate all of the movement passes, their response was straightforward. It was, why can't he go to the airport? And the response was directly, because people lie. I'm sorry, and to avoid one or two people taking the mickey, applying for movement to go to the airport and instead going off to visit friends, they were just turning down everybody who wanted to go to the airport, and that was just a bit of a crazy situation. So it's that's what I'm talking about. It's like the automatic assumption point is that you're lying and you're wrong. When it should sort of be, let's assume that everybody's fairly honest and that they need to go and do what they say they need to do, and there might be one or two people in there who are taking the mickey. So, you know, like most people, my friend just ignored the no movement recommendation, and he called a local taxi and he went anyway. Because at the end of the day, if you've got tickets and the tickets match your name on your passport and you're going to the airport, you know, the likelihood is there that you are telling the truth, and that if you miss your flight, you're going to be out by a lot of money. So I encountered a bit of that situation today, where the steward stopped me and he said, "Why are you here?" And I said, "Well, I'm here to get my second vaccination." And he said, "Well, where's your vaccination card?" And I said, "Well, I didn't get one, but here's my text message from Minnesota that says I should come today." And he looked at it and said, "No, that's not enough." And I was like thinking, well, I don't have anything else, you know, what more do you need? And then he asked me where I got my first one, and I told him Polyclinic, which is literally 5 minutes from where I am, and he hadn't heard of it, so he got quite suspicious, and it's quite a big clinic in Kigali, but he hadn't heard of it. And so, you know, I was then faced with this really unpleasant situation where he kind of made me feel that I was lying and that I shouldn't be there, and eventually he told me to stand up. And he took me over to another desk and he said, "We're going to see if your story's correct." And I was like, oh my goodness me, I've turned up here for my second Pfizer jab and I'm being treated as though I'm trying to break into a bank, was basically how I felt, which was very much not what I'd expected when I got up that morning and went down to my local clinic thinking, oh, you know, it'll be the same as before. I'll walk in, they'll take my information, give me a jab and we're done. So it got a lot better from then on in. I don't know, I'm not sure what his orders were or why he was being like that, but basically he took me over to this other guy to desk. He sat down and it was really helpful and really friendly and just said, "All right, what's your telephone number?" Checked it on the database, saw that I'd got my previous jab and said, "Yep, no problem, here you go." Gave me a card and told me where to go and sit. So, you know, it wasn't a very auspicious start, but it got a lot better. And I was put into this section for everybody who was going for their second jab. So I think we were all sitting quite close and there wasn't a lot of ventilation, but I think everybody that I was sitting with was already there for their second dose. So I think it was fairly safe. And then we did this thing, which is you used to have to do it when you go to the bank or to public buildings in Kigali. You don't see it so much now we have ticket machines a lot. So what it is basically you have rows of seats, and when one person goes up to the counter, you all just move along one seat, and then you go up to the next row, and then you move along, and then you go up, and then you go along, and eventually you get to the front desk. And what they were doing in this tent was a version of that, where you all just stood up and moved forward one row. So the front row went in, and on the right there were these curtains, and there were just desks and desks of nursing staff there to give the vaccine. So it was really, really well organised and very efficient. And you just got to the front row, stood up, went into the side room, got your jab, and out you went. So I was actually really pleasantly surprised, because I walked in and I saw the queue and I thought, oh, this is going to take hours. And in total, I think it took about 30 minutes. So it was about the same time it took me to go to my local clinic. So I was impressed, very impressed. And they've given me this vaccination card. Don't know if you can see that. Yeah. So that's my vaccination card, and it's got a code on it that I should be able to type into a website and download my full vaccination certificate saying that I'm now fully vaccinated. Now, I've been there and it's currently telling me that there's an internal server error. What I think that means is probably that because it was only a couple of hours ago, my details probably haven't been put into the system yet. So I'm going to give it until tomorrow afternoon and try again. And hopefully I will get my my full vaccination certificate. I'm not sure quite what that means at the moment. I don't know if it brings any advantages, but people are kind of saying that maybe when the airports are opening up, that it will be a requirement that you have been fully vaccinated, or there might be some travel restrictions for people who haven't been fully vaccinated. So I'm hoping that at some point it will help me get back to see my family. But in the meantime, it's just really good peace of mind knowing that I am unlikely to get really sick from COVID if I happen to get it. So yeah, I'm feeling glad. I'm glad that I went, and it was quite an interesting experience and pretty well organised, I'd say. So again, I'd really be interested to hear what people's experiences have been in other countries, especially where the vaccine isn't that easy to get. Have you been able to access it? How easy was it to access? What was the process like? Yeah. And caught up with my friend Nicole after that for a well-earned ice cream.